My name is David Grothus. Today's date is September 19th, 2016. Today I would like to talk about Aristotle. Aristotle, words of wisdom, the basis of good government and justice. Every state is a community of some kind, and every community is established with the view of some good. For mankind always acts in order to obtain that which they think is good. But if all communities aim at some good, the state or political community, which is the highest of all, and which embraces all the rest, aims, and in greater degree than any other, the highest good. We said that the violator of the law is unjust. The keeper of the law is just. Further, it is plain that all lawful things are in a manner just, because by lawful, we understand what has been defined by the legislative power, and each of these we say is just. The laws to give directions on all points aiming at either the common good of all or that of the best, and that of those in power, taking for the standard real goodness, or adopting some other estimate. In one way we mean by just those things which are apt to produce and preserve happiness and its ingredients for social community. It is clear, too, that we must separate off the just and unjust involved in these, because one may pretty well say that most lawful things are naturally a result of an action from virtue in its fullest sense, because the law enjoins the living in accordance with each virtue, and forbids living in accordance with each vice. Unjust is excess or defect of what is good or hurtful, respectively. In violation of the proportionate, therefore, injustice is both excess and defect, because it aims at producing excess or defect. Excess, that is, in man's own case, of what is simply advantageous, and defect of what is hurtful, and in the case of other men, in like manner, generally speaking, only that the proportionate is violated, not always in one direction as before, but whichever way it happens in the given case. And of the unjust act, the less is being acted unjustly towards, and the greater acting unjustly towards others. Aristotle's Ethics and Politics. The role of law in relation to the enforcement of morality reinforces the defense of the common good and welfare of society. The law of the city-state exists not merely to secure that men have opportunity to lead a morally good life, but to see that they do. Law can punish men for doing what is morally wrong for them to do and to others. It should be used for the promotion of moral virtue by these means. The law is one of the ends and purposes of society complex enough to have developed a legal system. The enemy of society is not error, but indifference. The cohesive power of morality is what matters. The maintenance of morality and the common good is necessary to prevent the disintegration of society. Empirical evidence is used to substantiate this claim. Moral convictions of the majority have a right to enforce morality by law. Unrestricted liberty to inflict what we call harm or suffering on others would in fact restrict the victim's liberty of action in three ways: emotional, psychological harm, and physical injury inflicted might actually impair the capacity for action in the present and the future. The knowledge that such harmful actions would create conditions of apprehension and uncertainty among potential victims, which would grossly inhibit their actions. Duties of each citizen include not to harm others or cause unnecessary suffering, and also the duty to come to the assistance and aid of others in need. Permitting liberty to be restricted by law if its exercise violated not only the natural duties, but any requirements of morality and the common good. The prohibitions against those actions and behaviors which violate the common good by law are necessary for the maintenance of civil society and the moral good and the general welfare of all citizens. It is a duty and moral obligation of each citizen, and duty and legal obligation of elected leaders, to promote and maintain the common good and the general welfare. To maintain the common good for a just and civil society is a basis of good government. Aristotle's Ethics and Politics. The role of law in relation to the enforcement of morality. The law of the city-state exists not merely to secure that men have opportunity to lead morally good life, but to see that they do. Law can punish men for doing what is morally wrong for them to do, but it should be used for the promotion of moral virtue by these means, and it is one of the ends and purposes of a society complex enough to have developed a legal system. The enemy of society is indifference and apathy. The cohesive power of morality is what matters. The maintenance of morality is necessary to prevent the disintegration of society. There is a great amount of empirical evidence to substantiate this claim. Moral convictions of the majority have the right to enforce morality by law to promote the common good and welfare of all citizens. Government leaders have a legal obligation and duty to uphold the law and enforce laws which are for the common good and welfare of all citizens. Democracy is based on each citizen being held responsible for his or her actions. The premise of democracy is the weak are protected from the strong and held in check by the majority and the law. Equal justice under the law brings liberty to all. Here are some special quotes I'd like to share with you. We, the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure liberty to ourselves and to our posterity, do ordain and establish the Constitution of the United States. That was the preamble. It seems almost incredible that the advocates of liberty should conceive of an idea of selling a fellow creature to slavery. James 14. The world is indebted for all triumphs which have been gained by reason and logic over error and oppression. James Madison. Hear him, ye senates, hear this truth sublime. He who allows oppression shares in the crime. Erasmus Darwin. Now I say that with cruelty, oppression, injustice, and indecency, it is everybody's business to interfere when they see it. Anne Sewell. In every man's mind the good deeds of liberty are planted, and he who brings his fellow down so low as to make him contented with the condition of slavery and indecency commits the highest crime against God and man. Henry Garnett. It is from the numberless diverse acts of courage and belief that human history is shaped. Each time a man stands up for an ideal, or acts to improve the lot of others, or strikes out against injustice, he sends forth a tiny ripple of hope. John F. Kennedy. The redressing of wrong to the righting of every form of error and injustice is one of the most hopeful characteristics of the time. Mary Livermore. I would remind you that extremism in the defense of liberty is no vice. Moderation in the pursuit of justice is no virtue. Barry Goldwater. The only two vices man must overcome to attain true liberty and freedom is apathy and indifference in the face of exploitation. There can be no true freedom to do as one wants when others are being neglected, oppressed, and exploited for profit at the expense of their God-given dignity and honor. David Grothus. Nothing should be ever implied as law which leads to unjust or absurd consequences. Stand with anybody that stands right. Stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. Abraham Lincoln. God cares for man. He must regard man with love when he does good. And he is moved to anger when he sins, and necessarily so. For he who hates wickedness must love goodness. On the contrary, he who is not angry at evil does not love the good. Anger, an emotion of the soul rousing itself to curb sin, ought to be present in man, so he can correct the vices and faults of those who are subject to him. Shall I not punish them for these things, says the Lord? Shall I not avenge myself on a nation such as this? Jeremiah 5:29. The exploitation of the poor is to us a misdemeanor. To God it is a disaster. Our reaction is disapproval. God's reaction is something no language can convey. It is a sign of cruelty that God's anger is aroused when the rights of the poor are violated, when widows and orphans are oppressed. Patience, a quality of holiness, may be sloth in the soul when associated with lack of righteous indignation. God is never neutral, never beyond good or evil. He is always partial to justice. To be impartial to people, one cannot be impartial to evil. The Hammurabi Code. To cause justice to prevail in the land, to destroy naughty and wicked men so that the strong might not afflict the weak. Isaiah 61:1. To heal the contrite of heart, release to the captives, deliverance to them who are oppressed and afflicted. And whosoever shall harm one of these little ones that believe in me, it would be better for him that a millstone were hanged around his neck and were cast in the deepest part of the ocean. Jesus. The hottest places in hell are reserved for those when faced with a great moral crisis, remain neutral and do nothing. Consider what I've said today. Share this information with your friends. God bless you and have a good day.